The Assassination and the Enduring Liberal Crack-Up. From your 2006 essay in Commentary magazine, Kennedy's had been a unique balancing act, combining ardent patriotism, that's the message of that inaugural address, with hip sophistication in a mix that could appeal to both traditional Americans and to the new cultural activists. After his death, these two groups divided into conflicting camps, thereby establishing the terms for the long-running culture war that continues today. What did the assassination have to do with that division into two groups?
Well, that's also a very good question, Peter. Of course, I think that Kennedy represented a bridge in liberalism. In one sense, he represented the New Deal and the Cold War aspects of liberalism in the post-war period. But of course, he was a very attractive man. He spoke beautifully. He used images from Greek poetry and drama in his speeches. And of course, he hung out with Hollywood stars and starlets, right, and with Harvard professors like Arthur Schlesinger. He played touch football. He was wealthy. He played golf. He went to the beach. He did all these things.
Movie star kind of
He was very
level.
much a celebrity. In fact, he was really the only president that we've ever had who was able to be a celebrity and a politician at the same time. Others have tried to do it but could never bring it off. Bill Clinton, for example, tried to do it and was not able to bring it off. So he was a very unique figure. So he did represent this new direction in liberalism that we see developing after the 60s, which is based upon culture and style, hipness, sophistication, all the rest.
So there's an opening even within the persona of John Kennedy to what would become the Cultural Revolution.
Yes. Kennedy represented himself, both sides of it, but no one else was able to ever to bring that together again. And these two sides of Kennedy parted ways after his assassination. And one of the things that the assassination contributed was this idea that America is guilty. The cultural sophisticates, the cultural liberals, beginning in the 1960s, embraced this idea that America is guilty of manifold sins. Kennedy didn't believe that. But out of his assassination, his assassination and its aftermath was the first time this was placed on public view that the nation is guilty.
Without the assassination of John Kennedy in 1960, would the nomination of George McGovern a dozen years later have been conceivable? And by George McGovern, I take it, I don't know how you feel about this, Jim, but I take it as the moment when the Democratic Party is captured by those cultural elements.
Yes.
Negative about America, get out of Vietnam, openness, if not indeed an embrace to the Cultural Revolution and so forth.
That would have been inconceivable in November of 1963 when John F. Kennedy embarked for his trip to Dallas. No one could have looked into the future to have seen such a rapid change coming over the Democratic Party and American liberalism. But within a few short years, from 1963 to 1968, the liberal movement in America came unglued. The war in Vietnam was obviously a factor. Civil rights was a factor. We had the riots in the cities. The campuses were coming apart. And an entirely new point of view overtook liberalism.
Why did it happen exclusively to liberals? If Kennedy was in so many ways conservative, or what we now would, if what he stood for in 1960, centrally the staunch anti-communism, patriotism, he loved the country. It wasn't until 2 decades later that we came up with the term Reagan Democrats, but those people were with him entirely. If he was in so many ways conservatives, why didn't the death have the same effect on conservatives it had on liberals?
Well, Peter, first of all, conservatives were in no way surprised to learn that a communist had shot the president.
They did not misinterpret the event.
No, conservatives at this time had little influence in the national media. They had no influence with the New York Times or the major networks that helped to convey this interpretation to the American people. But conservatives like Bill Buckley, our late friend, had been writing that communists were a danger not just internationally, excuse me, but domestically as well. So there was no need for conservatives to recast any of their assumptions in the aftermath of Kennedy's assassination.
All right. After almost 45 years of pessimism and blame, your phrase pessimism and self-blame, does that misinterpretation of Kennedy's assassination explain the enthusiasm that liberals now feel for Obama? That is to say, suddenly they have a liberal with a smile on his face. You remember the relief that conservatives felt, Reagan, a sunny conservative.
Yeah.
And now along comes Obama, and there's a way out of this cul-de-sac. Surely by now they realize that this loathing of America is a cul-de-sac for them. Politically, there's no way out. Obama offers. I just offer that to you.
That's a very interesting point. Of course, Ted Sorensen has endorsed Senator Obama,
Kennedy's speechwriter,
and he said he really represents the second coming of JFK. That's one of the things that he said, and he's written about this. So I think that's true. The Democrats have been looking, and the liberals have been looking now for 45 years for someone to pick up the mantle of John F. Kennedy and carry that forward, someone who's optimistic about America and an attractive figure whom they can be proud of. But I suggest in the book that the person who really picked up the mantle from Kennedy was Ronald Reagan. It was Ronald Reagan, as you know, who began again to remoralize the Cold War and to say that this is a struggle between freedom and tyranny, and that it was the evil empire, and he'd built up the military, and he had the notion that we could win the Cold War.
Right.
He challenged Gorbachev to tear down the wall. So it was Reagan who picked up the ball that the liberals dropped in the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination.
Jim Piereson, thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
For Uncommon Knowledge and the Hoover Institution, I'm Peter Robinson. Thanks for joining us.